The date is 3rd November 1943, and somewhere in the black water south of Iceland, Kapitänleutnant Hans Werner Krauss believes his U-boat is invisible. U-648 sits at periscope depth, electric motors purring softly, listening for convoy propellers through the hydrophones. The North Atlantic night is moonless, the sea state moderate, visibility near zero. Every man aboard knows the drill. Stay silent, stay deep, wait for the merchantmen to pass overhead, then the torpedoes. It has worked before. But tonight, 18,000 feet above them, something is watching. The short Sunderland flying boat throttles back its 4 Bristol Pegasus engines to near idle, descending through the cloud base at 120 feet per minute. Flight Lieutenant James McKay leans forward in his seat, eyes fixed on a device that should not exist, not according to anything the Germans know about physics, radio waves, or the limits of airborne detection. On a circular cathode ray tube, no larger than a dinner plate, a bright phosphorescent blip pulses exactly where U-648 believes it is hidden beneath the waves. McKay's navigator calls out range and bearing. The bomb aimer crawls into the nose. 4 depth charges hang in the bomb bay, each containing 300 pounds of Menol explosive. U-648 never hears the aircraft. The lookouts never spot it. The first warning comes when the charges bracket the hull in a sequence timed to the microsecond, creating a hammer blow of overlapping shock waves that ruptures every seal, splits every rivet, and crushes the pressure hull like a steel egg. 52 men die in the dark. Their boat joins 43 others sent to the bottom that month alone by aircraft they never detected. What McKay is using, what Krauss never knew existed, is ASV Mark III, airborne surface vessel radar, operating at 10 centimeters wavelength. It is not the first radar, it is not the most powerful, but it is the technology that transforms the Battle of the Atlantic from a grinding war of attrition into a systematic slaughter. And the Germans do not understand why their U-boats are dying until it is far too late. This is the story of how British scientists weaponized invisible light, how they miniaturized transmitters powerful enough to fry a man's nervous system, and how they won the Atlantic, not with bigger guns or faster ships, but with wavelengths the enemy could not detect and could not jam. For 2 years, Britain is losing. From September 1939 to March 1943, German U-boats sink 21 million tons of Allied shipping, roughly equivalent to every merchant vessel afloat in the North Atlantic when the war began. Convoys cross under perpetual threat. Merchant sailors drown by the thousands. Food rationing tightens. Fuel supplies dwindle. The arithmetic is simple and terrifying. Germany is sinking ships faster than Britain and America can build them. The convoys have escorts, destroyers and corvettes equipped with ASDIC, the Acoustic Submarine Detection System. But ASDIC only works underwater, and U-boats spend most of their time on the surface, where their diesel engines give them speed and range. They hunt in wolf packs, converging on convoys at night, attacking from multiple angles, then disappearing into the darkness before dawn. Aircraft could help, but only in daylight, and only if they can find a submarine's narrow conning tower against the gray chaos of an Atlantic swell.
Radar seems like the answer. The Royal Air Force fits Coastal Command aircraft with ASV Mark I and Mark II radars operating at 1.5-meter wavelength. These sets can detect surfaced U-boats at ranges up to 12 miles in good conditions. Between 1940 and early 1942, kills increase. But Admiral Karl Donitz is not stupid. German scientists developed the METOX receiver, a simple device that detects 1.5-meter transmissions long before British aircraft can spot the U-boat on their screens. METOX gives 20 minutes warning. That is enough. Submarines dive, aircraft arrive over empty water, and the killing resumes. By early 1943, Germany is winning the tonnage war. In March alone, U-boats sank 108 merchant ships, totaling 627,000 tons, the worst month of the entire war. Donitz has 400 submarines operational, with more coming. Britain's survival depends on the Atlantic convoys. The Atlantic convoys depend on closing the mid-ocean gap where land-based aircraft cannot reach. And closing the gap depends on detecting U-boats that now dive the instant they detect radar. The solution requires physics that barely exists. At the Telecommunications Research Establishment near Malvern, a team led by Dr. Hanbury Brown is racing to solve a problem that defeated earlier engineers: generating enough microwave power to build a practical airborne radar operating at 10-centimeter wavelength. Shorter wavelengths mean narrower beams, better resolution, smaller aerials that can actually fit in an aircraft nose. Most critically, shorter wavelengths mean transmissions the Germans cannot detect because they do not believe high-powered microwave generation is possible. They are wrong. The secret is the cavity magneton, invented at the University of Birmingham in February 1940 by John Randall and Harry Boot. It is an elegant device, a copper cylinder the size of a hockey puck with 8 precisely machined holes arranged around a central cathode. Apply 4,000 volts, insert the assembly into a powerful magnetic field, and electrons swirl in circular orbits, generating microwave radiation at exactly 10-centimeter wavelength. The first prototype produces 400 watts. Within months, engineers push output to 10 kilowatts, roughly equivalent to the continuous power consumption of 5 electric kettles, but concentrated into pulses lasting 1 microsecond. That pulse power changes everything. ASV Mark III uses a magneton manufactured by GEC at Wembley, coupled to a parabolic scanner mounted in a retractable radome beneath the aircraft nose. The scanner rotates continuously, sweeping a beam roughly 2 degrees wide across the sea below. When the beam strikes a metal object, a submarine hull, a periscope, even a snorkel tube, some energy reflects back to the receiving aerial. An amplifier boosts the echo. A cathode ray tube displays the result as a bright spot whose position indicates bearing and whose distance from the screen center indicates range. The entire system weighs 250 pounds, requires 600 watts of electrical power, and can detect a fully surfaced U-boat at ranges exceeding 25 miles. A conning tower alone, only 5 feet high, gives a return at 9 miles, which is sufficient. Most critically, it operates in total darkness, through cloud, through rain, through weather that previously grounded patrols. Submarines can no longer surface safely even in apparently empty ocean. The mid-Atlantic gap closes. U-boat losses soar. In May 1943, Germany loses 43 submarines, more than 1 per day. Donitz withdraws wolf packs from the North Atlantic routes. He does not understand what is killing his boats. METOX shows nothing. The boats are dying without warning, without detecting hostile radar, often without seeing the attacking aircraft until depth charges are already falling. German intelligence speculates about infrared detectors, about acoustic homing devices, about betrayal and espionage. They do not consider 10-centimeter radar because their own scientists have assured them it is impossible to generate sufficient microwave power in a practical device. They are wrong. Some captured British aircrew mentioned the new radar, but interrogators dismiss this as disinformation. Even when wreckage from a crashed Sunderland is recovered off Norway in June 1943, and even when technicians find the magneton assembly, German engineers struggle to believe what they are seeing. The power output seems absurd. Replication attempts fail. By the time working German 10-centimeter radar enters service in late 1944, the Battle of the Atlantic is over. The Americans receive cavity magneton samples in September 1940 as part of the Tizard mission. They build their own variants, but British production leads by 18 months, and British Mark III is operational first. American SCR-517 and SCR-720 radars use similar principles, but are developed for different aircraft types. The German Navy never deploys an equivalent system. Luftwaffe night fighters eventually use Liechtenstein SN-2 at 10 centimeters, but only from mid-1944, and it is less powerful, shorter ranged, and designed for air-to-air work rather than surface search. British 10-centimeter radar does something German 1.5-meter systems cannot. It gives useful returns from periscopes and schnorkels barely protruding above the waves. This forces submarines to remain completely submerged when aircraft are nearby, drastically reducing their operational effectiveness, their battery endurance, and their ability to coordinate pack attacks. The impact is measurable and devastating. In the first 5 months of 1943, before widespread Mark III deployment, U-boats sank 2.3 million tons whilst losing 68 submarines. In the final 7 months of 1943, after Mark III becomes standard, they sank 1 million tons whilst losing 140 boats. The exchange ratio reverses completely. By 1944, U-boats were more likely to be sunk on their first patrol than to sink a single merchant ship. Some historians argue that improvements in escort tactics, increased air cover, better depth charges, and code breaking through ultra-intelligence matter more than any single technology. This is partially true, but survivors' accounts are consistent. U-boat commanders report a dramatic increase in night attacks by aircraft they never detected. Donitz's war diary from mid-1943 onwards is filled with desperate speculation about unknown location methods. German submariners developed an almost superstitious dread of surfacing after dark. Several boats refuse orders rather than transit areas patrolled by British aircraft. ASV Mark III does not win the Battle of the Atlantic alone, but it transforms aircraft from fair-weather daytime hunters into all-weather, round-the-clock killers. That transformation closes the mid-Atlantic gap, forces U-boats to remain submerged, denies them the surface speed necessary for pack attacks, and shifts the tonnage war decisively in Britain's favor. Later airborne radars improve on Mark III. Better resolution, longer range, reduced weight, but the fundamental principle remains unchanged. Post-war maritime patrol aircraft, from the Shackleton to the Nimrod to the P-8 Poseidon, are essentially direct descendants of those Sunderlands and Liberators circling the Atlantic in 1943 with cavity magnetons scanning the darkness below. One surviving Mark III unit sits in the RAF Museum at Hendon, looking unimpressive. A dull metal cylinder, a small parabolic dish, some vacuum tubes. Nothing about its appearance suggests it helped kill 200 submarines and save thousands of merchant sailors. But then, the best weapons rarely look like much at all. So we return to that November night, to U-64 settling toward the bottom, to Mackay banking away into the darkness. Imagine being Krauss in those final seconds, confused, terrified, drowning in the dark, knowing your boat is dying but not understanding why. No radar warning, no aircraft sound, just sudden, impossible violence from an enemy you never detected and could not fight. That's what technological surprise looks like. Not louder guns or thicker armor or faster ships, but wavelengths the other side doesn't know exist and can't defend against. The silent service died silent deaths, killed by transmissions they couldn't hear, detected by beams they couldn't see, destroyed by an innovation their own scientists said was impossible. 10 centimeters. That's the distance between victory and defeat. That's the wavelength Britain weaponized, the frequency Germany never understood, and the reason 50,000 merchant sailors reached port alive who otherwise would have died in the Atlantic dark. The U-boats never heard it coming. That was rather the point.